And in this video, which has been sponsored by no one, none of that later, I'm going to be talking to you about all the stuff that people keep asking me about this channel, particularly the Hannibal graphic novel. When's that going to be ready then? The Armour, how's that coming along then? Why don't you make more videos? And what about merchandise and stuff? Okay, right, let's start dealing with that. First, the biggie. Hannibal, the graphic novel, In Search of Hannibal, which I'm producing with Christopher Steiniger. He's in Canada, he's the illustrator, and I'm writing the script. And how's that going then? Well, we could say it's going pretty well. I mean, recently we celebrated a rather arbitrary milestone of 100 pages finished. Yes, 100 pages finished. It's very, very arbitrary that. And I've never been a great fan, to be honest, of celebrating things that just happen to end in a multiple of noughts. And I suppose if that's the way you really want to go, then binary is for you because, well, think about it. It goes 1, 10, 11, 100. 100. There you go. Most people would say 4, but in binary, you get to 100 in just 4, and then 101, 110, 111, 1,000. Well, it's 8, but it's 1,000. You get so, yeah, binaries. But anyway, we stuck to the more conventional base 10, and our 100 pages done, which is that's the bulk of the novel done. But there's still a fair bit to go. Of course, we haven't made life easy for ourselves by actually making the novel slightly longer than was originally planned. Slightly longer. Yeah, so everything has taken so much longer than anticipated. The research, for example, I naively imagined that I would do the research, and then having done the research, I would write the script. But I would do the research and realise, wow, this research really takes quite a long time. You have to take very thorough notes, and there are actually quite a lot of books about this. And then it just never stops, because then you realise, oh, I could find out more about that character. Oh, that character's related to him. Oh, he also did that. Oh, that's interesting. And then you go down more and more rabbit holes and realise that these are things that you should know more about and are things that can possibly be at least alluded to in the script. And then you come to a thing. Maybe somebody goes to a building or sits on a chair, and then you realise, what would a chair of that sort of look like in this period? And that then requires more research. And one of the problems that we keep hitting again and again and again is that this is not set in the Roman imperial period. This is in the Republican period, about which we know far less. You might be disappointed, for instance, that SPQR doesn't come up in the book. Even when they put, at one point in the story, they put up a sign saying that this building is now under the authority of Rome, but it doesn't say SPQR. It says Roma, R-O-M-A, because that's apparently, I had to do the research and find this out, that's what in this period they say. SPQR comes later, as well as loads of other things. You may, for instance, want to see loads of huge marble buildings in the centre of Rome because that's your vision of what Rome should look like. But actually, that's imperial period Rome, and Rome in the time of Hannibal was largely brick and wood. In construction, so different look. Anyway, so there's loads more research to be done, and then I realised after a while I'm going to have to start writing the script. So you're researching and writing the script at the same time, and then you pass some script on to the illustrator, and then this has to come back and get revised. So everything takes rather a long time, and I've written the script at a pace that some might, a little unkindly and certainly inaccurately in terms of geology, describe as glacial. That is to say, very slowly. I am perhaps not a man who has the healthiest of relationships with deadlines. I really feel the need of them. I have no love for the whooshing noise they make as they go by. And I'll say to people, oh, give me deadlines. Oh, no, I don't want to cramp your style. Just when you're ready. If I do get a deadline, I tend to do stuff right at the last minute before that deadline. But at least, I generally get it done. If I don't have deadlines, it tends to, everything sort of slides and slides, and I know it's terrible, and I am to blame for this. So as I say, I've been writing the script really slowly, and the art as well has taken longer than everything. Essentially, everything has taken longer than anticipated, and it would be lovely at this point to be able to say to you, we'll be ready for Christmas. But no, this is another Christmas that we've missed. But I say with reasoned confidence that next year the backers, and thank you so much for all you backers, we'll get your book, and then we'll of course keep you up to date on all the various milestones that come along the way. So for instance, we've laid out the last page, or we've inked the last page, or it's gone to the proofreaders, it's gone to the printers, it's back from the printers, we're signing the thing, we're mailing it, and that'll be great. And it'll be wonderful to think there'll be a wonderful moment, although of course actually we've done it to ourselves because the Kickstarter was so successful. We ended up promising 2 books, so the second book which will be a much, well, it's a shorter book for a start, but it'll be much easier to do in lots of ways. It's not so close to history, so the research doesn't have to be quite so meticulous, and it's made up of lots of short stories. So I can write the whole of a short story, give the whole of a short story, beginning, middle and end, to Chris, who can then, with the whole of the short story in his hands, go, all right, okay, and just boom, get on with it. And he's also not going to be using the same art style. He's got several art styles, actually, they're quite varied. So it's quite likely, I think, that each of the stories will be in a slightly different art style, and all of them quicker to do than the one which has been developed for the main book, which is really detailed and so forth. So there you go. So it's going well in terms of we're really happy with what's done, but it's just a shame that we didn't get to where we are now a considerable while ago. So there you go. So that's how the Hannibal project has been going. And Armour, that's the next thing. People always say, well, how's the Armour getting on then? Well, that was interesting. I think my Armourer possibly had a similar armouring method to my writing one. When I first commissioned the Armour, he said it would be 6 to 9 months, and I thought, well, that's quite a long time, but okay, 6 to 9 months, fair enough. And he'd be working on my armour until it was done, then he would do someone else's armour and so forth. And there was a bit of a delay because he had to work on someone else's armour. But then I started meeting people at various events, and they would say, oh, all right, how's he getting on with your armour? Because he's doing this, that, and the other on mine at the moment. Anyway, long story short, it was over 3 years later that I actually got the last of the plates. But I now do have the last of the plates. So, for instance, I've got some rather nice things. Look at this. You've got a gauntlet. Okay. So it's a beautiful thing with flutes and shininess. So you think, oh, great. So you've now got the armour. So let's see it then. Let's see it all on. No. Unfortunately, it's a lot more complicated than that because there is a huge amount of work to be done on all the various fittings that are necessary. Until you've got all the plates, you can't make all the fittings because you've got to fit them to the armour and wear them in the context of the armour. So there's all the clothing to go underneath. Actually, that's pretty much done now, although it took me ages to get someone to do a doublet. This is an arming doublet. People often think that you have a very thickly padded jacket under plate armour, but generally no. Arming doublets have a minimal amount of padding, if any, in them. And the first 5 people I went to get a doublet made didn't. I eventually had to get one made in the States. But hey, at least it's beige. But there's a lot of work to do. You can see that there are grommets in it for what they're called points, these laces, they're called points. And I've added in quite a lot more. There's 4 on each elbow, for instance, for putting on the elbow cops or the couters, the elbow bits of protection. So once you've got that done, there's more padding to go on that, and then all the mail. So there can be mail to protect the armpits, and because my armourer changed the design of the upper cannon and fan brace, I've got to have mail here as well, and on the inside of the elbow, and you've got to have some way of attaching that to the doublet. And then there's the skirt and the collar, for instance. Here's the collar. So I've got most of the mail made now. This is the collar. It's actually too big, so this needs. I'm going to make it slightly more fancy and add what are called latten. That's brass, fancy rings along the edge. It just looks more knightly. And this collar is actually a bit too big, so it needs cutting down. Then I have to work out a way of attaching it to itself with buckles or hooks and eyes. There are various authentic methods that are possible. I probably need help with that, really. You do need a squire to hold these things on you whilst measurements are taken, and that all has to work in the context of the helmet and the back and breast, which then have to be fitted correctly. So until you've got all the bits, you can't really work on all the bits to cover the gaps between the bits and buckle the bits to the other bits, and the suspender belt for holding the skirt off, and all that sort of stuff. So I was hoping and expecting actually to have it ready for this summer just gone, so I can make videos about, I don't know, riding a bicycle in armour, shopping in Asda in armour, trying to get into a nightclub in armour, climbing a rope ladder, sleeping in a hayloft and going up an escalator the wrong way, and just, stuff in armour. But I do intend to do that and expect it to do it next summer, because I should by then have everything ready. So that's how the armour is getting on. Much slower than even I had anticipated, and I was expecting it to take really quite a long time. But it's getting there, the armour. And thank you so much to all my patrons who, paid for it. Thanks, guys. Right, so next thing, merchandise. Right, yes, if you go to www.lindybeige.uk, there's stuff you can buy. There are badges and mugs and things to make drinks in cans either continue to stay cold or hot for longer than otherwise they would. Koozies, I think they're called koozies or something, and of course the inevitable T-shirts like this one. You could get a T-shirt in beige. It says "Useless in battle" and the picture of a fire arrow, or you could have a T-shirt that's labelled in beige with the word beige. Whatever tickles your fancy, really. And I'm hoping to add at least one more design in the very near future. I think it'll be British officers don't duck, or something like that. And anyway. If you go to the website, then, all going well, that by the time this video is uploaded or very shortly thereafter, it should work that if you type in Beige Xmas, that's Beige Xmas, as a sort of discount code, you get 15% off for a limited period until the end of next week or something like that, run up to Christmas. There you go, so there's that. And what was it? Oh yeah, why don't I make more videos? Yeah, I used to do 2 a week, you may remember, and now I find myself wondering, how the heck did I do that? Well, I used to make much simpler videos. One of the reasons I don't make more videos is that I am but a one-man band. And if you see some other YouTuber who may seem similar to me trying to make videos of my degree of complexity, they've probably got quite a big team behind them. The Vlog Brothers, you might know those, 2 very intelligent Americans. 2 brothers, John and Hank Green, they knock out a vast number of videos on several channels like Vlog Brothers and Crash Course and SciShow and others. But the things that they have a team, well, last I was informed of it, their team was 30 people working for them, graphics people, editors, directors, producers, lighting men, all the rest of it. And so that's how they're able to crank out an amazing amount of output. Now, I don't have a director or a producer or an editor or any of these things. I'm a one-man band. And the thing which probably holds me most up is the editing, which confuses a lot of people who don't make videos because they think, what, editing? What's that? Editing that surely only takes 5 minutes. Oh, no. Television companies, professional television companies who make television, they budget for 6 days of editing for every day of production. So if something took a week to shoot, it'll take typically 6 weeks to edit. And that's assuming it's not heavy with animation and special effects and all those things which are really labour intensive. You may think, but half your videos, in fact more than half your videos, well, that's just you talking to the camera, there's no editing involved. Oh yeah, there is. There's the colour grading, for instance. The raw footage might look like this, but then I try to make it look more like this. So it's not too obviously graded, but it's still graded. And I've got to take all the peaks out of the sound and all the sound of the fridge coming on in the background and annoying stuff like that. And I quite often go off, you may have noticed this, on a tangent. So I may have researched something and I feel I know what I'm talking about, and I can go off there, but then I go off on a tangent into areas which I perhaps haven't researched nearly so well. So when I get to the editing stage, I think, oh, I better check that fact. And sometimes I find that I'm a little bit wrong, and so I have to correct that with a caption. And I'm adding in captions and I'm adding in illustrative material, the picture here, for instance. And if it's a picture, I have to create that picture myself. If it's a map, I usually do that myself, particularly if it's an animated map, I definitely have to do it myself. Or if it's some illustrative material of a thing or a place or whatever, I have to then get a copyright-free picture of that, and it can take hours sometimes to find one of those. Or maybe I can't find one, in which case I have to create something myself to replace it, or I have to get permission for one that isn't copyright-free, and that can take quite a long time. So typically a piece to camera, if it's a longish one, will take me 2 days to edit, putting in all the captions and correcting all of the vision and sound glitches and all the little clicks in the soundtrack and all that stuff, and then putting on the end. So yeah, it all takes a long time, and I can't farm that out. You might think, well, give it to someone else to do. No, he won't know. An editor, he won't know which facts I'm not sure about, which facts need checking and what facts need correcting. He won't know what needs illustrating or what jokes to put in the captions. I've really got to do it. If I want these videos to be my videos and have the feel of my videos, I've got to do it myself. And if I do something like go to Malta, as I did a few years ago, and shoot 17 hours of footage and come back with it, I can't just dump it onto an editor and say, there you go, edit that, because it's full of shots like I'm at an archaeological site and there's a doorway, and the camera pans from the doorway over to a rock, holds it there for a second, and then pans over to another rock. So what does that mean then? I know why I shot that. I know what point I was making about how these three things relate to each other and what we can tell by looking at them, and the joke that was because of the timing of it was hilarious. But the editor doesn't know that, so I'd have to tell him what every single shot potentially means. And just editing things together, this shot means that, this shot means that, this shot means that, that still doesn't tell a story. What is the story I'm trying to tell here? What is the overall point I'm trying to make? And how does this set up the gag towards the end, or whatever? And it would take so much longer to tell someone else to do that than to do it myself that I'm really stuck. Now, if I were on Malta with a director and a producer and a team, and we were discussing what everything meant, and there was a production assistant taking notes and so forth, then that team could then work with the editor whilst I get on with doing the next thing. But I don't have a team. So I'm just one guy, so I have to do everything myself. So that's why I don't make more videos. Plus, I don't have the healthiest of relations with deadlines. Lindybeige!